Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. We're here today to awaken you spiritually. We're going to go into some depth on that. And she is an energy healer and founder of, and also CEO of the Light Center in Boston. And that is Madison White. Hey, Madison, how you doing today?
Hey, good. It's a special day. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you back. We are doing this on 2/2/2/2. I don't know if there's relevance there for that, but it's never going to happen again, I think, in our lifetime, right?
Yeah, there's always significance to these things, and there's obviously a lot of numerological significance to what's happening today. And history has shown a lot of really significant things happening on these numerological dates. So it doesn't all necessarily mean that it's going to happen today, but maybe there's some energies that are going to be planted, some energies that are be interwoven today that will cause maybe some really big shifts in the days that are coming. But I think we're all kind of ready for that, right? I think we all kind of want to shift in a way.
I'm glad you said that, because more than not, people I talk to are ready for some kind of a change, whatever the change is, change a job, change a direction, change in relationships, whatever it might be.
Right.
And that's where you come in terms of spirituality. So we're going to dig a little deeper. We started a couple of podcasts ago talking about that, and what usually happens when we're together, the car turns and we digress totally different direction, but in a good direction.
It's perfect. It's natural. It flows. It takes on a life of its own.
Totally. Last time we talked, it was all about the Talking Head song, Once in a Lifetime. And that was your realization. Well, how did I get here? And I was listening to the same exact song. I'm not kidding. And thinking the same thing you were when you changed your path. So the song was relatable, and here we are in some spiritual self-mastery. So this is what you do at the Light Center. This is what you offer. So let's go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah. So I offer one-on-one sessions. I call them healing sessions, but like I said, these are things that are activating you, because you're the only one that can heal yourself, right? So I do life activation, for example, is the first step, often followed up by full spirit activation. And what these are doing is they're activating the spiritual essence, or what we like to call the God potential within each of us, right? And I love how we were talking about the Talking Head song, because I think we're all a lot more alike than we think we are. We ask ourselves a lot of the same questions. We struggle with a lot of similar things. And the wonderful thing about these activations, about this path is that it goes beyond dogma, any religious dogma. It goes beyond belief system. It goes beyond race or sexual orientation or all of these things, because all of us share the same structure of DNA, right? Regardless of who you are, we are all cellular the same being. And that's the level that we're working with on this path with the life activation, for example, is we're activating the spiritual essence within your DNA. So, and then after that is when the real healing, the real transformation, the real healing happens. It might bring some things up. It might shed some light on some things of like, yeah, I was really, tripped up on what people thought of me, or something that my, grade school teacher told me way back in the day, you know what I mean? And that was really creating our reality. And then when we can just light it up and let that go, we have so much more freedom. We experience so much more peace. We teach into this past weekend, I was teaching a class called Empower Thyself, which is the adept initiation, which is really the first step on a path. And we talk in that class, we talk a lot about the negative ego, and the general public is working 90% from their subconscious mind, which is their programming or their personality masks, or not who their true individual spirit is. And only 10% of your brain is actually processing the true reality of what's going on, without the filter of everything that you've quote unquote learned from the past about things. So, I talk a lot about light. It's the light center, bringing the light to you. We're bringing light to the subconscious so that you can sift through that stuff, filter it out for yourself on your own. And of course, I'm here as your spiritual guide to be a sounding board or reflective mirror for you on that process, to let more of who you truly are shine through to your life, to everything that you want to create as an individual spirit with a potential to become God, right here within
When
you.
you say God, I think it scares a lot of people, thinking, we're getting
No.
religious here, but we don't mean it that way. And I do want to go back to what you just said about teachers saying something to you and things that resonate and stay in your mind or your subconscious. I was going to be an artist back in the day, and I was almost a syndicated cartoonist, and I was in 10th, 11th grade, and I was painting, and I was trying to do the clouds, and I was getting frustrated. It wasn't coming up out just the way I wanted it to. And the art teacher, Mrs. Meyer, came over, and she's like, with her coffee breath, I'll just take care of it right here, and I'll show you. But you know what? You are an underachiever. And I never forgot about that. And it always stayed with me. And I think even to the day, and I'm making changes within myself to get past that, overachieve, really do it up. But she was right. And just what you said about a teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true how those, especially when we're children, every tiny, kids are sponges, right? So every tiny little thing that is said, or they see, or they watch what happens, all of that goes very deeply into our subconscious programming. So, and in those first, usually like those first like 12 years, we get the majority of our programming, and then we just replay the same scenarios over and over and over again. But it can happen at any time, in high school, for example, say, oh, my best friend stole my boyfriend in high school. So now I'm going to have this fear, this programming, this trauma that my best friend is always going to steal my boyfriend, and I'm just going to recreate that scenario, recreate that scenario. And it's a lot of self-responsibility, and I think in our culture, there's a lot of blaming and victimhood, where people like to say, oh, it's because of that person, oh, it's because of this, oh, it's because of that. And that might be true. Like, that person in your life may have played a role in a traumatic experience that you had, but ultimately you own that experience for yourself, right? They own their version of their experience, and that's for them to deal with and process whatever karma or anything they're going to deal with. But your piece is going to be yours to process and to handle and to heal. And in a way, it can be a little bit scary, but it's also hugely empowering, because if it's yours, and if you have the tools and the light maybe to take personal responsibility, you can change the script at any time. You can rewrite your script. You can rewrite your life. You can make a different choice. That can just be not part of your script anymore.
I love
that's
it.
Just not.
It
it's amazing.
So powerful. Yeah. And I say the same exact thing. Maybe if somebody did you wrong, they started writing the story, but you're going to write the ending. And now you have the potential to do that. So walk us through there, how you make somebody more spiritually self-aware with what you do at the Light Center in Boston.
Yeah. So it's really giving them more light, giving them more tools. Like I said, in the life activation, we're activating that spiritual blueprint. So in that session, the first half of it is kind of that total energy shower, like car wash, where I'm balancing all of your different energy bodies within you. And then I use a specialized wand to activate the spiritual DNA, and this is magic. So there's a science and an art to it for sure. Because I think a lot of people are like, well, how does that work? How does that happen? I can't explain it to you scientifically, but I know from the fruits. I know from my life. I know from so many people's lives, the positive effect that just that life activation has had. People who are struggling to, maybe quit their issues with addiction, for example, or they're trying to get out of or have a different rewrite on an abusive relationship, emotional, physical, whatever it is. And all these, it just kind of stops. It just magically stops because they have that light turned on within them. They have that connection to yourself as spirit. And I kind of defined spirituality last time of, the investigation of anything that is beyond the physical. And that's us. We are beyond the physical. We have a physical body, a soul body, and a spirit body, which are all interlinked here in our physical life. And our spirit body is infinite. It has no space and time. It's the part of us that is in oneness with all, where all is one. So when we connect more with that spirit self, a lot of the stuff that our human brain was really worried about, it's like, that stuff doesn't actually really matter, right? Like, you're allowing yourself to get hung up on stuff that doesn't really actually matter. And when you have that connection with your spirit self that is infinite, that is eternal, it really puts it in perspective, like what actually matters, your happiness, your joy, your desires, your dreams, like your connection with others. Those are the things that really matter. So
how
the
long
next
does it take? Can we, yeah, I'm just curious.
An hour and a half
For that awakening?
Yeah. And
Wow.
then that is the beginning. That is going to change the trajectory of your life permanently. You're going to be flowing. Now, you will always have free will, right? No one can ever take that away from you. You will always have the choice to do what you will, but with more light, AKA, when I say light, I mean awareness, with more awareness of who you are, what your purpose is, and the ability, right? Because we've turned the lights on. So you're not, people say, oh, all the answers are within you. Okay, great. Where?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't feel any closer to them because you just said that.
Still waiting,
but let's
still
actually,
searching. Yeah,
still looking. Why is this so hard? If it's right here, it's because we forgot through our programming. We forgot who we actually are. So by turning the lights on, having more awareness, connecting more of the truth of who we are, which is a spiritual being, right? Here experiencing a physical reality for a very short blip of time. When we connect more in with that, things get a lot easier. And so it's a one-on-one session that is done in person, either by myself or, like I said, there are practitioners all over the globe. I can put you in touch with somebody, or you can come on over to Boston and we can do this session for you.
Can you do it virtually?
It cannot be done virtually, unfortunately. There are other types of sessions that I can do virtually, but we're working with, it's very important in our lineage, the lineage that I'm trained in, that all of my, this isn't something I came up with, right? This comes from a 3,000-year-old lineage. So, and has been done the same way for 3,000 years plus, probably. We just have the written record for 3,000 years, is that it's done in the physical. Because we're not, there's some spiritual traditions, for example, that will teach you to go, maybe you go up to a mountain and you meditate for 30, 40 years in order to reach enlightenment. And that's fine. That's all well and good. You can definitely reach enlightenment that way. But you're going to sacrifice your influence on this world, and the way that the world is, by you creating a ripple, right? Being that drop in the pond. Creating a ripple of change in the world around you. And to me, we're in a state of things right now in the world where we need everybody on deck.
Agreed.
We really need everyone to take that personal responsibility for their own healing, so that when you do go out into the world, you are a ripple of positive change, right? Because you've done it inwardly. That was the only way I was convinced on this work that it worked, was that it did something for me. I saw that my life changed. It was only in that moment where, I was working on that food truck in Texas, having given up everything in my life and just thrown myself to the whim of the universe, that I heard that song. And what really happened was I realized that if my life was going to change, I was going to be the one who was going to start making different choices.
So I have questions
Ooh.
about your journey, because I find it fascinating how you got enlightened and where you are and how you help so many people. So when you had that awakening, was it instantaneous? Was it, whoa, wait a minute, look what I see where I was. This is where I got to go, and this is what I got to do to get there?
It was kind of instantaneous. The The aha moment was instantaneous. I was getting paid cash to work on a food truck. I took all of that cash and I took a taxi to the airport. I had not really anything. I had this, how's this for synchronicity? To the dollar, I had enough cash to pay for a plane ticket home that night.
Wow.
So, and I actually had to beg for quarters because I had no cell phone. I had to ask someone in the airport for quarters for me to make a phone call, which I had been used to at that point. I had been flying signs on the side of the road, and that was just that was just a part of how I lived at that point. Asked for quarters to call back home, and what's funny is that I called my family, and it was April 1st, and their first instinct was,
Yeah.
"Is this a joke?" And I was like, "No, really, I have a minute on the phone with you. Can you please come to Boston Logan Airport tonight and pick me up? I'll be there at 10 p.m. or whatever it was." And then it took me several months to sort of like recoup. I went back home. Thankfully, my mother, thank God, had saved all of my tax information from working as a nurse the previous year. So I was able to file my taxes. I had just kind of left my car like in my parents' driveway. So I did all the paperwork to get my car back on the road. I bought a phone. I had a head full of dreadlocks. I had to shave my head to get rid of the dreadlocks. And then it was kind of like, okay, I don't know if any nursing hospitals are going to hire me with a totally shaved head. So, you know what I mean? Slowly, like, but it was in that moment where I was coming back and I was like, okay, like, what do I do now? Like, who am I? Like, how should I build my life? Okay, I go back and get a job as a nurse, right? That makes sense because that's what I'm trained in and I can make money and get myself back on my feet. But I know that that's not what I want to do because that's what I ran from. That job is what, burnt me out. And I was like, yeah, I know that that's not it. So it'll be a stepping stone. But what is it really? And by this point I had received a life activation. I had received Empower Thyself initiation. But like I said, I had received a lot of tools, but wasn't using them. And my story is a little bit extreme. Not everyone's going to go through exactly this, but this was just the way that it unfolded for me. I've always been kind of an extreme person. So, but
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In one sentence, what's your biggest regret about your whole life path currently up to this point?
I actually joked with someone about this recently. Is one of my biggest, I don't have a lot of regrets, if I'm being honest. I mean, yes, there's definitely things that I wish I had said differently to people. Maybe I had been nicer to people. Maybe I had taken, like we said, more personal responsibility, you know what I mean? In my connections with other people, maybe things could have turned out better, but I don't really regret that because I acknowledge that I had been doing the best I could with what I had. So the question, I have to say this because you asked, and I was literally talking about it the other day, is I wish I had gotten a head tattoo while my head was shaved.
We'd never see it, but you'd know it's there.
Exactly. You'd never know, but I would know. And it'd be just this cool thing, a little secret that I could have. But that's what I'm saying. I don't have a lot of regrets. I have so much self-forgiveness for anything that I could have regrets around.
Gotcha. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of your awakening. A lot of us would look at it the other way and beat ourselves up like, oh, I should have done this. I should have not done that. And just kind of let it go, moving on.
No, you did, I go back, we're a universal lineage. So we use witchcraft, we use Kabbalah, we use Christ, for example. One of my favorite things that he said was, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And you can take that and turn that inward. I just didn't know. How can you do better if you don't know?
Right.
So how can you be mad at yourself if you didn't know? You didn't have the tools. You didn't have the self-awareness at the time. You did the best with what you had at that time. And when you do know better, now you can do better. But there's no use in beating yourself up for woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Yep. I agree with you. And it's not easy sometimes to get to that point but you need to look at it. I feel that it was part of your journey and you needed to do that to get to that.
Exactly.
If you weren't living the way you were, you might not have had that moment where, and you know what? If it wasn't so extreme from your nursing career to, working on a food truck with no cell phone, you may have gravitated right back to nursing. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's not what that wasn't your passion at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to, in order to really want to make a change, you have to sort of like push yourself so far away from what you want that sort of there's nowhere else to go, and that's where I was when I came and found, because again, I was an atheist, so I was all set with God, not all good. No, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had been working in psych and I knew that I needed something, and spirituality was kind of the only thing that I hadn't tried. Right. So I was at that point where I was like, I'm willing to swallow my ego, swallow my pride, swallow my programming to an extent of what I think God or spirituality is, in the hope that things could be different for me. So every individual person has to have that, Brene Brown calls it come to Jesus moment,
Right. Yeah.
Which I love. And, for example, when we're talking about, you mentioned how, the concept of God and being God is very scary for people. 10 years ago, I would have never been someone who talked about Jesus or God or anything like that. And I think it's really important to separate the energy, the sort of like the archetypes of, the archetype of Jesus, for example, who really came here, he came here to teach love. That's it.
Yeah.
No one owns that. No one owns that story. You know what I mean? People have taken it and translated it and ascribed their own meaning to it, but no one can change that. And same with God. Nobody owns God. The church doesn't own God, whatever religion. These are two separate things we're talking about. You can talk about religion and you can talk about God. And sometimes they intertwine, but these are two separate things from you. Because when I'm talking about God, I'm also talking about ourselves, right? Because that's who we are, creators. We are manifestors. We're constantly creating and manifesting. What does God do? Creates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So are we creating from our 90% subconscious programming, which is just re-spitting out our trauma over and over again? Or are we creating from the 10% of the true essence of who we are, individuality, experiencing reality purely through our 10 senses without the filters of the ego and other things? And it feels, I say that and I feel people like, I have no idea. I don't know what that is. I have no idea. But it's possible. It's possible. And it's how you have more joy. It's how you have more inner peace, is you don't let all that other crap. And I kind of want to take a minute and define trauma, because I've been talking about traumatic experience and things like that. And I think some people think of trauma, they think of, violence or neglect or, these sort of big things. But one of my colleagues a few years ago defined trauma in a way that I really, really like. And it's any trauma or traumatic experience is something that is said or happened to you that allows you to believe that you don't matter or you are not important. And I think on that sense, everyone has very traumatic lives.
Well, we've all been through that. And when you talk about trauma, it may not be, my feeling is it may not be something that makes you feel worthless, but it's something that's on your radar, something that happened to you that affects you.
Yeah.
In a major way. But then again, to your point, it can be something that makes you feel less self-worth.
Less than. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because there's also a lot of things that can happen to you, like your experience with your art teacher. Something happens to you that makes you step up. You know what I mean? Because that person is maybe seeing beyond your self limitations.
You know why? Because people are telling me that now, and it's it could be a life coach, could be somebody, could be a psychic, could be an astrologer, could be somebody that I'm closely connected to, all kind of say the same thing, what she said. And I always believed what she said. I just didn't want to believe it. It's
well, there was something in you that said that that's not true.
Yeah,
right?
but it's
you
true.
didn't allow yourself to take it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, especially when you're a teenager at that time, you're invincible, you're fantastic. There's usually, of course, nowadays, more teens have image issues because of social media and everything's, a little bit different, but
which is not true reality. Social media is not real. right? Social media is not true reality. Yeah. So we're not perceiving true reality when we're consuming is this,
This has been carefully crafted. Even if it's a 13-year-old girl taking a picture, she just didn't go like this. She worked on it, made sure it took 15 of them. Lighting was just right. Perfect. My daughter's 13.
Because we have such a hyper focus on the physical.
Yeah.
And we're ignoring the spiritual, the spirit essence of who we are.
Question for you. We talked about the 90% and the subconscious and the crap, if you will, that's in you, that's been pounded your way in your life. And then you have the 10%, which is the real essence of you. What's your percentages right now?
Oh, I have no idea. I hope I'm more than 10. I hope I'm more than 10%. I don't know if I could put it. I don't know. We always, the purpose of the path. Because we're running out of time. Life activation is done in the first session. Full spirit activation is the follow-up. Empower Thyself initiation is a 2-day class that really opens up all of the, I'll say curriculum, if you will, because it is a school, right? So there's the path of the healer, where you can go on and become a full-time professional healer. There's the path of the warrior, or the warrior of light, the peaceful warrior, to really combat anything that holds you back. There is Kabbalah. There are Gaia awakening classes as part of the Wiccan tradition that the lineage holds. There is sacred geometry. There is astral travel. There is so much. There is so much there's alchemy. There's numerology. There's so much that's all under this one roof of a pure lineage, all over the world, handed down in an oral tradition from teacher to student. So the purpose of the whole path is to eliminate the negative ego. And when we're talking about our subconscious programming, it becomes our negative ego. It becomes our negative programming. But we also have a positive ego, right? Which is, it's not that, because we are whole, right? It's not just like, oh, this only 10% of me, but it's how much you are perceiving, right? Because you are your individual spirit. At the end of the day, point blank, none, over, that's it. That's who you are. It's your individual spirit perceiving your human experience, your sort of like holographic, the story that you're creating through your reality. Are you spitting out old reels that from your past, or are you allowing the truth of reality, of like colors or vibrations or anything like that? Or are you allowing yourself to perceive that true reality? And then, it sort of becomes this dance of you as your individual spirit, as a God being, experiencing reality. And then in this dance of creation and manifestation, when we eliminate the negative ego, what we manifest becomes much more in alignment with what our spirit self desires.
I love your analogy, especially the hologram, because I got a crystal clear feel for what you're talking about. And we're out of time. I hate this.
I know.
We just get rolling into something. I'm like, and I have to say, I have a very close friend who is very authentic, very spiritual, and did a type of class a couple of years ago, not even to your level, but just an awareness. And she still talks about it. So I can't imagine somebody doing your class, what they walk away. It's literally life-changing, literally
life-changing. Yeah. I will say that with confidence.
Check it out. TheLightCenterBoston.com, worth a trip and worth a change for your life. And Madison White, always great having you on.
Great to be here. Thank you so much. It's really great having a conversation with you.
Same. How did I get here? That's always the question. How did I get here? And the other question is, how do you not have a Boston accent? I still can't figure that out.
I know. I'll work on it.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm fascinated. I'm listening. Yeah. Like, I don't hear it. And you're originally from and went back to, but all good. Yeah. We'll catch up next time. Look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.